Alright guys, so we are actually going to continue our coverage over the 2021 X-Men series. Now remember, this is technically now taking place after Inferno. And with Jonathan Hickman gone, Gary Dugan is the one in charge when it comes to the main X-Men book. Now we already covered the first 3 chapters of this latest X-Men run. But when it comes to X-Men number 4, it does take a different kind of turn. And that turn is, well, let's just say nightmares. Yes, you heard that right. The X-Men are gonna have to deal with their nightmares for this book. But it also shows us how powerful Jean Grey is compared to other characters in the Marvel Universe. So let's go ahead and dive into X-Men number 4. And so that is the moment where we actually pick up with Cyclops and Jean Grey right now in the treehouse. Now remember, when it comes to the treehouse is technically the main base for this X-Men team. Now with that being said, in each part of the treehouse, there is a room that belongs to a certain X-Men, and especially one for Cyclops and Jean Grey. Now right now, they're having nightmares, and with them having nightmares, we are able to actually see what is their worst fears. Now for Cyclops, for him it's all the past events that he had to go through growing up, but also being an X-Men. But on top of that, we learned that when it comes to Cyclops, one of the things he's really worried about is his team failing. His team failing because of his leadership. Now, for Jean Grey, her worst fear is the idea of her becoming the Phoenix once again. Because something a lot of fans do forget about the Phoenix, when she first became the Dark Phoenix, she killed off an entire galaxy. I want to say it was a galaxy or at least a planet. Either way, she did kill off millions of lives. And so because of that, one of her worst fears is becoming the Dark Phoenix once again. Now we do kind of find out why the X-Men are experiencing these nightmares. And we kind of find out because of a character known as Nightmare. He's the reason why our heroes right now are experiencing nightmares. Now, when it comes to Nightmare, he usually fights against Doctor Strange, but at this point in Marvel Comics, Doctor Strange is actually dead. And so it makes it easier for Nightmare to come over here to the real world and to hunt people's dreams. Now, usually Nightmare comes from the dream dimension. And matter of fact, in the dream dimension, there is something known as the Nightmare world, where he stays at, where he feeds off people's nightmares in the dream dimension. And right now, he's just having the best time of his life being able to actually walk around the real world without anybody trying to stop him, which means that he is able to cause more havoc for people's dreams, to give everybody he's near nightmares, like he is right now with Cyclops and Jean Grey. But getting back into the nightmares of Cyclops and Jean Grey, we actually do focus on Cyclops's right now. And right now you have Cyclops worried about the idea of failing the mutant race, or being the reason why the mutant race actually fails. And what I mean by that is because right now the mutant race is technically successful. Right after they were able to build their mutant nation, they were able to accomplish a lot of great things in Dawn of X, Reign of X, Trial of X. And so right now, it's technically Cyclops saying he feels like he'll be the reason why the mutant nation is going to fall apart, or something is going to happen down the road, and he'll be the reason why everybody loses when it comes to the mutant race. But when it comes to Jean Grey, her fear or her nightmare is all about the idea of just being the Phoenix like we saw earlier. But she's afraid of becoming the Phoenix once again and going out into the universe and killing off an entire race of people like she did when she first became the Dark Phoenix. Now for Nightmare, he kind of realized that when it comes to Cyclops and Jean Grey nightmares, yes, they're fun to see, but he wants to see something more interesting. And so that is the moment he goes over to Laura Kinney. Of course, that would be X-23, or better known at this point in Marvel Comics as the other Wolverine, because she's also part of the X-Men team. Either way, you do have Nightmare dive into her nightmares to figure out what in the world is she thinking about, or what is her worst fears. And so when it comes to Wolverine, we come to find out what her worst fear is. And her worst fear is that technically she is unable to remember a certain mission. Now, that mission was her and Synch and Darwin going inside the vault. And the vault is technically the home to the children of the vault. Now, when it comes to the vault, time moves differently there. And matter of fact, when Wolverine, Synch, and Darwin were inside there, 100 years passed by. Now, Wolverine and Synch were able to fall in love with one another. But here comes the problem though. Cerebro. Cerebro is technically used at this point in Marvel Comics to record every single mutant across the world memories. The problem was Cerebro was unable to record the memories of Wolverine while she was inside the vault. And so when she died, of course, they brought her back to life, but the only thing Cerebro had on file was everything before the vault, not anything while she was in the vault. And so when it comes to Wolverine, she does not remember falling in love with Synch. Synch remembers because he was able to make it out of there so that Cerebro was able to record his memories. But for Wolverine, unfortunately, that couldn't happen to her. And so right now, she's technically afraid to fall back in love with Synch all over again. But at the same time, she's kind of wondering if she should fall in love with Synch again to actually be happy. But here comes the big moment though. And so that is the moment we come to find out that Jean Grey was able to actually attack Nightmare. Now this is huge because usually when it comes to Nightmare, he's a very powerful being. And sometimes he does give Doctor Strange a run for his money. But this is Jean Grey saying, you don't understand me though. I am an Omega level mutant. But on top of that, when I was the Phoenix, I did kill a lot of people. I have murdered a lot of people. But with those things happen in my past, I was able to use that to motivate me to move on to a better version of myself. And so while you were trying to feed on my nightmares or my fears, you don't realize that I was technically able to move on from those moments, those fears, and conquer them, and use the fears as a way to motivate me every single day to show the world a better version of myself. And once again, she does remind him that she is an Omega level mutant. And so she was able to actually send Nightmare back home packing and have him realize that even though Doctor Strange is not here, there's still other people on Earth who could still challenge him and make him regret ever coming to the world of the living. Now that is the moment where we actually jump over to Ben Urich. Now when we do, it's Ben Urich right now technically continuing on with his investigation. Because remember, in the earlier 3 issues, it seems like Ben Urich is on track of finding out what the mutant race have been doing ever since it became a nation. That the mutant race technically had the ability now to resurrect themselves. Now remember, when it comes to the mutant race, they're technically making you a new clone body and then downloading your memories into that new clone body. But either way, what the mutant race were able to accomplish is a way to bring someone back from the dead, just in a more interesting but crazy kind of way. Now, the mutant race have kept that idea to themselves. The human race, other countries, they have no idea about this at all. But right now, it's Ben Urich technically on the right track of finding out and possibly telling the world what the mutant race have able to accomplish with their abilities. Now that is the moment where we actually jump over to Kelvin Hing. Now remember, Kelvin Hing had a company where his goal was to technically turn Mars into a planet where people would be able to actually live on. Now, the problem was that back in the Hellfire Gala event in 2021, the mutant race was actually able to accomplish that goal before he was. Now, because he put a lot of money towards his company and tech to reach that goal, when the mutant race did that, it hurt his company a lot. And so he wants revenge against his company. Now, of course, he also had joined up with Orchis. Now, Orchis is the main evil group right now that is trying to get rid of the mutant race. Now, you also have to remember that when it comes to Orchis, it is technically made up of different people from different organizations across the Marvel universe. So like Hydra, or S.H.I.E.L.D., or even AIM. Either way, they right now have joined forces with Kelvin to help him reach his goal. They're gonna do something to remove the mutants off Mars so that he'll be the one to actually reach the goal to make Mars a planet where humans can live on. But when we actually see Kevin, we do see him right now going to a space station. And when he does, is him right now trying to give himself powers by using cosmic rays to hopefully do some damage to the mutant race, but down the road. But this is where we are going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. But guys, I'll see y'all next time. Later.